This next one's my favorite one on here.
Yeah.
Okay. Nebraska. Let's talk Nebraska.
Yeah.
Here is the scenario I put before you. Nebraska gets off to a 5-0 start.
Okay.
Tell me if you have heard this before.
Heard it. Love it.
Nebraska gets off to a hot start, goes 5-0 against Ohio, Bowling Green, North Dakota. The North Dakota Fighting Hawks, by the way. An upstart Michigan State and Maryland.
Okay.
5-0 start to the season going into, I guess, week 6.
Mm-hmm.
From that point forward, they finish 1-6.
Ooh.
They end up 6-6 overall. Here's the remaining 7 games
Okay.
on their slate. Indiana at home. On the road at Oregon. An off week. Back home against Washington. On the road in consecutive weeks against Illinois and Rutgers. And they close out the year at home against Ohio State and on the road for the Heroes game against Iowa. That is a brutal back half of the schedule. So this, to me, feels very realistic.
Okay.
About a really good start, a really bad finish, which has absolutely been a hallmark of Rhule's tenure so far in Lincoln. We've seen this time and again. Our fans at that point, with a 6-6 season and closing out the year with a whimper, are fans lamenting the Rhule extension that we saw at the end of last year.
So are they not saying, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay? I should never have been given access to a soundboard.
You need a fade, or we need to work on that sound because it's got potential, but it's too hard of a cut for me at the end.
I don't know how to do this in Audition or any other audio. What is it? A DAW? Is that what they're called?
A DAW, yeah, sure.
Digital audio workspace.
Yeah.
Oh, look at me. You see this in movie trailers all the time where they're playing like a haunting cover of some 80s pop song or 90s pop song. And then there's the reverb echoey at the end of it when there's like, oh, there's nobody in the cabin, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to rule the world. And I don't know how to do that. So.
Oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be my lab experiment. Send me that sound after this.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll do a little bit
of Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
I think the worst possible thing is going 6-6 after starting 5. You said 5-0 and then 1-6.
5-0, 1-6. Yeah.
And obviously the meat of their schedule is they've got a meaty back end. Ty, everybody knows Ty loves a meaty back end. That's why he gravitated here.
Sure.
Yeah, Indiana, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, Rutgers, Ohio State, Iowa. I think there are some people who are already lamenting the monster extension. I think the offseason is long enough. You give fans a long enough time to think about paying Matt Rhule like he is a championship caliber coach because maybe Penn State was interested in him. And then you sit back and you're like, wait, what? Like, what has he shown thus far in his time in Lincoln? Like, you can't pay somebody $6 million to do what Matt Rhule has done in Lincoln? I bet you could. I don't know, man. I think the worst possible thing is people are just going to be like, this again?
Yeah.
Like, you can talk yourself into going 3-9 and saying, okay, we're going to bring in a bunch of portal guys. We're going to make, an offensive coordinator change. Like, you can talk yourself into hope after a bad season based on maybe some interesting and powerful changes. Going 6-6 and just losing to all of these teams and not being at all a factor and in the conversation for the best 6, 7, 8 teams in the Big Ten, all you're doing is just generating more apathy. So, yes, you would absolutely have people, I think a wave of people, I think a majority of Nebraska fans would be super pissed about the extension.
I mean, Matt Rhule, in a sense, was the biggest winner of a very active coaching carousel.
Definitely.
Last year, and in particular, James Franklin getting fired early because Nebraska didn't want to be in a situation where they were looking for a new coach. They felt good enough about Rhule back when they still had Dylan Raiola, at least, that they wanted to keep him around and they wanted to retain his services, right? They wanted to keep him there for as long as he wanted to be in Lincoln. But now, as the season unfolded, as his stock, I think, plummeted down the stretch last year, and especially now after losing Raiola and going into this offseason now with the schedule ahead of him, it gets harder to justify such a long-term extension with such buyout money attached to it.
Yeah.
It really does. The win total right now, FanDuel, I think this is from FanDuel, is 6.5, which I would not touch with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
Looking at this schedule. I mean, it's just a brutal schedule. I think you're right. There is definitely a group of fans that already are lamenting that long-term extension.
I wouldn't even say lamenting is probably too strong, but questioning how wise it is.
Sure.
Yeah, questioning the wisdom. Yeah.
There is, I think, enough back this year for this team. I looked at Bill's returning production figures. Overall, Nebraska is number 3. That is still after losing the likes of Dylan Raiola, who obviously was good enough for a while before he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
They also lose Emmett Johnson, who rushed for like 1,400 yards out of the backfield. So even despite the fact that they lose those two guys, there's still enough back from a returning production standpoint, given what they retain and what they brought in, that it's not like they're starting from scratch. And defensively, they bring back a little bit more. Yeah.
Awful against the run, and still questions about the offensive line after how bad it was for stretches last season.
Yep. So like I am not super high on Nebraska going into this year, but I also think that we need to put a little bit of optimism on what this roster still has.
Okay.
Even despite the fact that this is a brutal schedule, I still think there's a chance that they could surprise some of us. And I love Anthony. Like, I have a soft spot for Anthony Colandrea. I don't know why. But I think he makes things interesting. I think the unpredictability of his game meshes quite well with the general unpredictability of Dana Holgorsen, which makes for kind of an interesting storyline. So I hope that this is not the scenario where they start hot and they go out with a whimper. I think it's very much a possibility. I am hoping for 7-5.
Yeah.
I am hoping they hit that over and we don't have to have this conversation. Either way, Rhule's coming back next year. I mean, Rhule's coming back forever with the money that they would owe him.
Yeah.
But in terms of like giving the fan base something to root for, I think given the schedule, if you finish 7-5, the vibes are still okay. 6-6 going out with a whimper though is a much different story.
Okay.
Like I would be very, very pessimistic in that scenario.
So we've been doing this 10,000-foot view of going 6-6. Let's be more specific, okay? So if he starts the season off 5-0, that's likely against no ranked teams. Ohio, Bowling Green, North Dakota, at Michigan State, Maryland. Now, Maryland might start the season undefeated and be number 23 or something, but in September, because that's September, Maryland. But if they go 1-6 and the 1 is something crazy,
like Indiana or Ohio State,
at Oregon, Ohio State, something like that, okay, that changes a little bit of it. 2, the other thing that could change a little bit of it is throughout Matt Rhule's time as a college coach, there hasn't really been an electric, fantastic offense where you're like, quarterback's operating on all cylinders, receivers are developing, it's creative, they're scoring a ton. If they're just on the opposite end of when they were the greatest 3-9 team of all time, okay? That they're the greatest 6-6 team, right? They're losing to Ohio State close again, right? A couple of years ago, they lose close to Ohio State, close. They lose close to Ohio State again. It's a shootout against Oregon, but they lose, right? That like there is an excitement to the manner in which, especially on offense, Nebraska's playing football for the first time ever under Matt Rhule.
Right. You're talking like Great Plains, Auburn right now.
Yes. I'm talking about, maybe it's just a tough fought game and they just are outmaneuvered and outmanned by a more talented team, but like showing a lot of guts and moxie, Ty.
Moxie.
And it concludes with them winning one of those games against Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, or something like that, where you're just like, wow, they really did it. They beat Washington. A top 20 Washington. And that's like proof of offensive improvement, even though they weren't able to pull it off and they lost close a bunch of other times, and they're the greatest 6-6 team ever. Then, and only then, could I make the argument that like,
okay,
what a great evaluation and development of Anthony Colandrea, what great offensive line development with these whatever 2 or 3 new transfers coming in that are expected to start. Then we're talking about, okay, They didn't get it done, but they showed that they belonged. Then and only then am I willing to concede that everybody isn't sad about the extension.